what I'm hearing is you're saying sometimes your neighborhood makes you feel like they've got no intention for you. Like you're not part of the
nail
plan.
on the head.
What you've just said, I think, is 100% fire. I think you've given away amazing game. Hello and welcome to the Leading Communities podcast, brought to you by Aspire for You CIC and produced by That's All Media CIC. I'm Kit Shawande and I'll be your host. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leading Communities podcast. So this is part of the Walsall series on more of the street interviews and getting a feel for things that young people are interested in, or just, you know, where a community's going from a different direction. So almost kind of listening to our young people for them to lead us. So I am joined by Varnate. Do you want to give us just a small rundown of your life in Walsall so far?
Yeah, man. So my name's Varnate, or Devante, but I grew up in Darliston. So I've been in and out of Walsall all my life. Like I know Walsall like the back of my hand, and it's if you ask different people, they'll say different things, but it's home to me. But at the same time, like I can understand different people's views and perspectives on Walsall, but it is a good place in my opinion. So,
yeah, cool. So kind of like growing up, what was interesting about it? What was different about it?
Well, it's just it's a communal place. So I found that, especially from where I'm from, a lot of the families knew each other and everything. So growing up, it wasn't just, especially because there's a lot of ethnic minorities, a lot of your family is in a lot of these different places as well. So growing up, it was a big extended community in essence.
Yeah. Okay. So right now, let's just run through the journey of how we kind of got in touch with you. So obviously Aspire for You is who's doing this podcast, but you've kind of come through some of our youth brands. Mm-hmm. So just talk through some of that journey, and then from there I want us to be just exploring what you feel and what you're seeing is kind of going on, and what do you think certain organizations and decision makers need to be aware of or thinking about.
Cool. So I found you guys. So I'm an artist, so for me, I'm always looking out for people that are doing music things, or looking out for events or just things like that. I'm always got my ears and eyes open. So that's how I come across you guys. I saw online you was hosting, I think it was a cypher for the first one, and you're just trying to pull together the local artists, and I love things like that. So I got involved. I got in contact with you guys and then set it up from there. And then from there, because I saw the kind of vision that was going on, I've just come back again, done a couple of other things with you guys. But yeah, it was good to just see that there is still things going on in the community and for the community, and I like to be involved in things like that. So
okay. So how many times do you think you've been back, as it were?
So I've done, obviously I'm back again today for this little podcast as well. And
then before this, it was what?
The cypher as well.
Another cypher.
It was a freestyle, sorry. Yeah. It turned into a cypher when we was in
a green room. Okay, so for everyone to kind of know, so probably about a fortnight ago, load of different artists, and we did something with a green screen. You spit your bars, we record it professionally, nice setup, nice visuals and all of that. So you came for that, and obviously whilst somebody's getting recorded, the other people are in a room, and musicians do what musicians do. Exactly. And everyone's just spitting bars, comparing bars. How does that feel when you're in that room and that space and that vibe?
That's the word, vibe. It's a complete vibe, and it's a good thing being around different energies, because you get that inspiration. It's there's a good competitiveness within rap especially, and artistry, and it's respectfully you want to show that this is what I can do, and it's good to be pushed and challenged by so many other artists that are just great at what they do. So it definitely is good to have a platform to be around that as well.
And is it fair or is it controversial to say, as a male, some males need that element of competition, especially if we're doing it in a safe way?
110%, because if we don't do it in a safe way, a lot of the time that competitive nature gets exercised in unsafe ways, and we see a lot of that. We know that all too well.
Calm. Okay, so you guys are all in there, you're vibing. What does that do for you as also an artist, and also maybe even for your well-being?
It's for me personally, it's therapy, expression. There's a lot of through life you build up things and you keep a lot internal, but with music, it allows you to express it. So then when you're around other people as well, it's like you're around other people that are doing the same thing. It's a communal energy, and you get to express it and find different forms of expression as well. And especially like you were saying, as a male, it's good to have that expression, because a lot of the time, especially like in Walsall, I don't think there's a lot of direction to where to put that expression, if that makes sense.
So for a lot of people, they that those experiences matter, but that was kind of your second to last experience. So how many other experiences before that were you going through that got to that point? Sorry, as in, what else did you come to before that cipher that we've just spoken about?
So it was the original one. That was the cipher.
Okay.
That was the first one.
Okay.
But like, it was the back and forth communication with especially with Nathan, one of your guys as well. So we were just coming up with like ideas of other stuff that we would like to do, because he asked a lot of questions about what we could do as well.
Yeah. And how does that feel?
It feels good to like have a voice, like we are, like, especially in an artist's perspective. It's good to know that there are people and places that want to push this and want to take it and find other ways to elevate it. So it's good.
What do you think we can learn about that balance between us suggesting and maybe saying, hey, this is what we do, versus saying, well, this is what we could do, but how do you guys want it to look? Like, what's a healthy balance in there, or how do we find a good balance?
I think the key to it is to ask what people want, because there's one thing saying this is what we do, but if it's not relevant or relatable, it's not going to be translated in the way that you might intend it to. But if you know your target audience and know what they want, then if you could stand from a standpoint of this is what we do, at least then it's a lot more relatable to them, because you already know that's kind of what they want, if that makes sense. So for example, if you ask the youth and they said, we'd like platform for freestyles, or we'd like to have a hub to do art or be creative, at least then, you know, if you stand and say, we have a creative hub, we do art, music, at least you know that was something that was wanted.
Yeah, you're giving people the things they want. Okay, cool. So yeah, you're definitely kind of talking how we're listening and how we look at the world, and we only know that from kind of listening to young people like you. So yeah, those experiences that you've been coming back for, I've asked other people this. If you came the first time and it wasn't a great experience, what do you think would normally have happened?
Wouldn't have come again, to be honest. Like, and that's how a lot of it is. The difference would have been, let's say it wasn't a good experience, but the vision and the potential was there, and I could see it, I might give it a chance again. But let's just say like it was just not what it was intended, then I probably just wouldn't come again.
So really, quality matters these days. If we're looking at like engaging young people,
but more so the vibe of it as well, because if you can come away feeling like that was a good experience, or I've learned from that experience, or like that's made me feel a different way about today, or do you know what I mean? If you can come away with something from that experience, then even if it didn't go how you intended, if they can still walk away with something, I still think that's a success, if that makes sense. So the quality does matter in my thoughts, but I think intention and intensity behind that intention, how much you want to like have. So for example, if your goal was to, I don't know, push artistry, if your intention behind that was to set up a hub, if only like 3 artists turned up and you expected 10, but you still had that passion behind it with those 3 artists, that would probably be like the best session that those 3 artists would come, and then you could build around that. So sometimes it is about as well building with those guys, because people attract people, I think, as well. So if you can build with your core will then attract more people, I do believe. But it's finding that foundation of what they actually want first.
So those are solid fire points, really, because you're saying build a tribe, find a core tribe and be meaningful to a core set of people. Definitely. And then build it from there. But then you use 2 words, and I think that's what I'm going to deep dive on. You used the word intensity and intention. So tell me about the power of intention from your perspective, or from young people's perspective.
The power of intention from like my perspective personally is everything, because like you have to intend on something in order to create it. Your thoughts have to create that. So let's say if you go into something half-hearted, you're only going to have a half-hearted outcome.
And have you seen that anyway? Have you been part of any programs where the intention wasn't right? And how did that make you or the young people feel? Or young adults?
Sometimes it like, if things come across as like just not genuine, we can tell. Like, we can definitely tell. And sometimes I feel like things are done to say, tick box. So okay, we opened up this tick, but what's the intention behind that?
How many people are coming through?
Yeah,
what's really going on?
Do you know what I mean?
How long do they want to stay for? Do they think about you when the sessions are done? Like, who are you meaningful to?
Exactly. And a lot of the time, I do feel like people get missed, and especially in areas like Walsall. Like, if you go to Walsall now, a lot of the shops are closed, and even as aesthetically, it's not like giving it the youth any like inspiration. So imagine now when they're looking for things to do, and like there's no, like, it's just a half-hearted art. You can,
and that's deep, because what I'm hearing is you're saying sometimes your neighborhood makes you feel like they've got no intention for you. Like, you're not part of the plan.
Nail on the head.
And that's why I like these things, because it's about hearing something in a different way. If you're going around your high street, you're looking at the shops, and it doesn't look like there's a continuity plan. It doesn't look like there's a plan for me. It doesn't look like there's something for me to latch onto when I get older. And especially as a young person, all everyone tells you is how much you can do when you're older. But when you're looking around and it looks like there's nothing to do, okay. That's really powerful. So that's the power of intent. It sends stories and it tells deeper level. Go on.
And in a relatable way. So like, the people that are in these places, it doesn't come across sometimes that they are like represented to. So like, because the way that, like, even like down to like wording and things that are used sometimes, like when programs are given out, like a lot of the time, if it was like simple or just relatable to, so like, I feel like I have to say my friend now, he's a good friend, he's an artist as well. So he does what he does, and he's good in the sense of he's relatable with the words he uses, he's relatable to how he communicates his message to the people. And sometimes if that element is missed, then the audience that you want might also be missed. Sometimes it's not even the message, it's how it's put across.
Bam, okay. So this is now where we're kind of shifting onto marketing a little bit. So you're saying what you put out, how you put it out, who you're talking to really matters. And then obviously earlier you spoke about intensity. So what's the story around intensity in terms of messaging, intensity in communications? Like, how should people be thinking about intensity in communications for young people?
Well, do you want the message to be seen and consumed? Because we're living in a time now where it's a visual age and attention span's very short. So a lot of the time, if you give, like, let's take a poster for example. I'm not taking away from the power of a poster, because it can give you all the information you need and it's there. But without the other aspects of the marketing, you're going to miss out on the people that aren't in tune that way. Everyone learns in a different way. Some people learn visually, some people learn through hearing things, some people learn through like watching things and doing things. So that's why TikTok now is such a powerful form of marketing, because you have a visual aspect to the message as well. And that's a good way, in my personal opinion, to target the youth, because they're on there all the time. They create trends, they do all these dances and things like that. So if you can combine a way of using, for example, music for people who can listen, words for people who like to learn through reading, and then obviously the visual side of things for people, if you can combine those aspects in some way, you're at least doing the most you can to try and tick all the boxes for the audience that you want.
And I think so this is where it's deep, because like, so, you know, I'm gonna kind of go a bit deeper, because the professionals that will be listening to this and decision makers, I just want to make sure everyone heard what you're saying, right? So when we're talking about intensity, you're basically saying, because you got a poster, that's not enough. Just because you've put it in a WhatsApp advert, that's not enough. Just because you've got a TikTok channel, that's not enough. When we're talking about intensity, what can you tell them about what it takes to get through to maybe 10 young people for them to come to an event? Like, how long do they need to be talking about something? How many posts do you think? And again, you might not be the expert in social media communications, but from your experience of it, in order for me to see you, bearing in mind, you might be following all these meme channels, all your favorite artists, all your friends and all your peers. So if I'm a church group, if I want to address, young males, addressing violence against women and girls. I want to get people on my apprenticeship. I want to help reduce knife crime. I want to help kind of talk about mental health. How much intensity in the communications is necessary to reach the average young person today?
All of it, but at the same time as well, like there's different aspects to the intensity. So for example, some people will only be able to receive a message through, let's say, a role model, for example. So sometimes it's where the message is coming from as well. So let's take a lot of the young black kids, for example. A lot of the time they want to listen to someone that sounds and looks like them, and if the message isn't coming in a way that's presented like that, a lot of the time it might not be received in that way. So like, from my opinion, it's just there's a lot of aspects to think, but in order to be able to truly reach these people, you have to like know the audience you want first, and then think about, if you were this audience, how would I receive this information? So I'm a young kid, and I'm scrolling through TikTok. That's what I'm doing. So for something to catch me now, it's gotta catch me first, and it's gotta have something that of value to me. It's got to add value, especially when the media's free. If I'm going to come back to it, it's got to have something of value for me to take away, whether that is a message, whether that is a lesson, whether that is a bit of positivity. Do you know how far even that can go?
So let's just hold on to that. You're on TikTok, you're sliding. So what I'm trying to join the dots for people is the algorithm is learning as you're sliding. So as Varnate's sliding, the algorithm's saying Varnate likes this particular artist. Oh, Varnate likes this type of meme. The algorithm wants to keep Varnate on that platform. So it's going to basically go, okay, the next 10, I'm going to make sure 60% of those, this is me just giving examples, 60% of those is going to be similar to what Vantae's liked already. So for me, as said church group, said government organization, NHS intervention, or whatever it is, I have to be very close to mimicking what you like already for the algorithm to even suggest me and you, because we've got to have some commonality. So either you're following anything with the Walsall hashtag, you're following something about trap and grime, maybe you're following something about mental health. That helps. But if I'm not putting those right hashtags in and none of your friends are looking at it, the algorithm will rather show you something from Mexico rather than because that thing from Mexico matches more of your behavior type, your interest and all of that. So on my side, I might need to do 10 pieces of content just to go on.
And this is why I think it's sometimes being outside of the box with it. So let's even take the topic of mental health, for example. Like, one of the creative ways, just a bit of free one for you, like people relate to, like, there's a lot of Netflix shows about like showing this reality. So if there was, let's say, like a short, like little media film, or like even like a 30-second, just like a short story or something, that might capture them because they're already used to consuming the media in that way. And then if there was a message after that, it might be an easier way for them to consume it because they've already watched Top Boy and they've already like used to consuming information. So
in that way. It's
like
culture hacking culture. Yeah. If you know something's trending and you know that there's that, like even somebody taking a clip from a popular something or other, obviously you got to reference it, cite it, and all of the legal spelegal. I don't know if that's a word, but at the same time, you're saying even that gives you a better chance because you might be watching, or you might be drawn to these videos, and then the mental health message then hits you. So all of a sudden, that organization has a better chance of hitting a Walsall young person based on that. So when we're talking about intensity, it's not we did one post and then we go back a month. And again, for clarity, I know it's not easy, especially for small organizations. We haven't always got a whole marketing team, but it's very clear. Like, posting at least 10 things on the same topic is better than one poster, which is obviously always better than nothing, but doing one poster is not enough to turn it around. Then we got to think about the type of people that are in the content, but also if we're going into the communities, we got to think about the quality of the person telling that story and the recommendation. If you're using an influencer, think about the quality of that influencer, and then you got to think about all the platforms, because actually, just as a general feedback, Snap versus TikTok versus Insta, how do you rate them, in what order?
In what for marketing?
You run me through how you see it in general. Like, if you are an artist trying to reach other artists, or if you're an organization like I've mentioned, that's trying to reach young people like you.
TikTok, Instagram, Snap.
Okay.
TikTok, because you've just, like, with the way you feed the algorithm, it's just got a chance of, once it knows who you want to reach, if it keeps pushing it out to those similar people, you've got a chance of it going viral and things like that.
So TikTok's young enough for you to still have a chance.
Yeah, no, TikTok's you've got I think you got a chance, because it finds the audience it's the best for finding a new audience. Awesome. I would say.
Awesome.
In terms of Instagram's good for networking and finding people like in a similar base and area, because you'll see, okay, that artist with that artist, or especially if you're in a field already and you start seeing the circles of people and you find out, this is the events that I need to go to. Do you know what I mean? Instagram's good for like the visual side of it, seeing what's going on in whatever your field is, just seeing what's going on. Snap, there is an element of Snap that could be used, because you're still tapping into like your audience on there, and I think Snap's more of an intimate one. So let's say I was doing behind the scenes, or I wanted people to come along with me on my journey, let's say, I feel like that's more of an intimate one to showcase the journey of what's going on, because people like that, people like to be involved. So I feel like that's to capture that aspect. But for finding a new audience, and then for networking as well around that audience, I'd say TikTok and Instagram are the top two for that.
What you've just said, I think, is 100% fire. I think you've given away amazing game. If people don't kind of holler at you to turn you into their consultant, they're missing out. But everything you said there kind of matters. So it's, again, just helping people to understand that intent matters. Like, who how authentic and real are you in terms of who you're trying to work with, help and engage with. But then on top of that, you got to be very serious and intentful in how much volume you put out, how often you put out the volume, and for how long, if you really want to kind of cut through. And is it also fair to say that some of that intensity goes into credibility? Definitely. Meaning that if people are seeing that this content, you guys have been about this for a time, and you're not just rocking up, and you know what, you guys might actually be the truth. Like, whatever you promise, you might be able to deliver. Is that a thing?
110%. That and that consistency aspect of it, I do agree that, like, yeah, you do kind of think, okay, cool, there is credibility, especially if there's like consistency in the branding and the theme, and as well, that does go a long way, because if you're a new person to it, it makes it seem established. It gives you that, and I'm not saying fake it until you make it, but it just shows that, okay, even if that is the start, it shows what your intentions and how you set the bar is. This is the level of quality that we are pushing forward. And if you keep that, like, then everything else will fall into place, in my opinion.
Okay, because what you're talking about is really like the game's changed. And I do think that sometimes as organizations, everybody feels people, or young people, but definitely some of the quote unquote harder to reach communities, quote unquote hidden communities, I think some people still think everyone should be grateful that something exists. So I'm going to put a phrase out, and this is my own phrase, but I'd be interested in you knocking it down, or you kind of, validating it, or just even reflecting. You may not have an answer. I'm coming to a conclusion that now organizations need you more than you need them. Meaning, if a young person is care experienced, if somebody may be going through some kind of form of drug addiction, or maybe even some stuff like domestic abuse, I'm starting to observe that people, if they don't get the right support early, people will lock off, and then slowly people would endure and put up with whatever they're putting up with more than they will reach out to an organization for a bad experience, because of that bad experience, or B, they're just so fed up and tired and nothing is inspiring them that they would rather, I wouldn't say they'd rather stay where they are, but they just can't be bothered with going through that feeling of being let down. And then there's maybe a slight third one, which is some of people know that organizations are getting paid to so-called help them. So over time, my feeling is people are starting to be like, you know what? Like, if you're not gonna reach out, I'm not gonna reach out. If you're not that good, I'm not gonna do much. And I'd rather just deal with my thing, because for you, you're gonna either lose the contract or you'll stay in your job, but my life isn't affected. So that phrase, we need you more than you need us, critique it, reflect on it.
Okay, so there was a couple of points that you made, like those 3 points. I do believe it's an amalgamation of the 3, and I'll explain why. So in terms of the last point that you said about people being paid for it, like, again, it comes down to intent. Yes, there is a payment aspect of it, but some people might take that as disingenuine, and it's like, oh, you're not helping because you want to. But let's just take that aspect away from it then, and let's look at it without that. It takes a lot for people, like, in situations, to even want to seek help, you know. I do believe that and if there's no faith in the system that they're seeking help from, or the avenues that they're seeking it from, for example, if they don't have solidified faith that the outcome I will have will be better at the end of it, because it's that feeling of jumping into the unknown. Sometimes the misery that you have now, some people might think that might be better because they don't know what's on the other end of on the other side of it. So it might take a lot for them even to get to that point anyway. So let's say they have went through these avenues now and they did have that bad experience. Well, where's the faith that there would be a better experience from that? So that's why a lot of people lock off, is because where's like the kind of success stories of this person had this help through this avenue and this is where they went. There are some, I'm not going to say there's not, but you definitely see a lot more examples of, well, there's nothing that we could do, so I'll just do this. Or for example now, even like for the young people and stuff, let's say therapy, is it easy to access therapy? A lot of people say, we need therapy as like young people and even older people and as a community in general, like to talk through a lot of the traumas that people have faced, because that's why a lot of people behave the way they do. It's through their traumas. But is that an easy thing to access? Where do you go to get that? And do you know what I mean? And this is like kind of what I'm saying in a sense of, because the fundamentals are so hard to access, it's kind of like people don't want to go through the other avenues sometimes, because it's like it's healing the symptom and not the root. And it's almost like they don't ever want to get to the root. And if people aren't trying to get to the root, then it's like, okay, well, cool, there's no point in putting a little bit of sugar on it. And I feel sometimes.
Yeah, and I think fundamentally you're saying people will then get used to the situation they're in, but then actually everybody then has to work harder to quote unquote reach them. And that's where that phrase, we need you more than you need us, comes, in the sense that, again, if the organizations don't reach you, they don't hit their target, contract moves and all of that. Sadly, the people still go through their thing, but really that's what's going on, meaning whoever makes the most effort kind of gets the best results. But if people don't understand that and they think that communities should be grateful, if organizations think communities should be grateful, we're gonna end up spending even more and more and more, because fundamentally the state organization, everyone that needs a vote, everyone that needs to stay in a job, needs to actually work harder to get to people in this day and age with so much noise. Rationally, people think that's weird, because they're like, well, why would you carry on suffering when the help is just there? Like, you don't have to have the answer, but how do you explain to people that when you're going through difficulties and challenges, it's not all about what's rational? It's sometimes the brain and the human emotion are gonna always choose what's more comfortable or familiar over what's right. But can you help people understand what people might have gone through that makes them just not want to trust the state or trust some of these organizations?
Well, I think a lot of it as well. So like, a lot of it might come down to the personal aspect of people want to feel capable enough to handle their own problems. Like that is a big thing, and it takes a lot to even for a person to accept, I am a person that needs help, or I am a person that needs to go and look for something that's going to help me. Like it takes a lot of people. Like I'm humble. Like I don't mind saying, yo, sometimes I need help through life. We all need help. It's not. This is why it's community based, or it should be. Like you don't ever get through life solo. Otherwise, there would be no life. Even like towards the end of life, people aim to have marriages, and do you know what I'm saying? Union.
Yeah.
It's more to it. So there's a lot of aspects of that. Like people want to be able to handle things on their own, and they don't know that it is okay to get the help. But then it's another case of, like you said, where is it coming from, and how genuine is it? Because a lot of people don't want to go to somewhere where it's not genuine, and how much of anything is genuine nowadays? That's not I'm not saying it's not. That's a genuine question, because the fact that we even have to ask that question shows that there are some aspects that obviously aren't. Like, do you know what I mean? And even that seed of doubt that's planted, that seed of doubt can be enough for a person that's already in a bad situation to not want to make it worse. Do you know what I mean?
And it's very unlikely that somebody doesn't trust because it's their first time. Very often, by the time you're 13, between 13 and 16, you've probably been let down in the double figures, but people may not see it as being let down. But and then by the time you get to 18, 19, 20, then all of that kind of grows. Okay, so representation was one of the other things that I think you kind of talked about a bit. Like, what's your take on it? Like, what should people be thinking about if they're, especially in, say, Walsall, around representation and young people that look like you, etc.?
We need to talk to them and understand them truthfully. And it's the children and the young people that you, let's say, quote unquote, like wouldn't want to talk to, and like the rowdy and reckless, and we throw these labels on people. And young people have a lot of energy, and if you've got nothing to do with it, then sometimes you are gonna just act out. Like, but that doesn't mean that they're not human with their own natures and their own goals, and they might want to. A lot of like people, if you'd asked them before they got introduced to like life and that, they might have had, I want to do this aspiration, I want to be a fireman. Like, when you ask kids and they say the most, and they have that like dream state in their mind of, I can reach this, I can do anything. That gets like snapped out like of a lot of people at a young age, and it's those kind of ones that you want to try and talk to and understand. Okay, well,
who knocks it out? Who snaps it? I don't know if you're going to go there.
Yeah, we can. There's a lot of places. So there's a lot of places. School, like the area in general, even sometimes home and everything. And so, like home, for example, a lot of people are not taught to aim for that, because a lot of their family members might not have had the same opportunities, so they don't know any higher aspirations, for example. So there's that aspect. School, even the whole way school runs, they put you in systems and bands and streams. You're set 1, you're set 5. Automatically now, you in set 5, you're thinking, well, academically I can't achieve what set one can achieve.
And this goes back to the high street story, which is, if I don't see a high street that helps me think, I can go into that job place, if I don't see adults and other role models that make me feel like I can go into that, then I stop. I don't aspire. And if I'm in set 5 and nobody's then saying, by the way, you can get into set 3, set 2, set 1, it might just take time. If you're not hearing that, these are slow subliminal messages.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it becomes. And like, it's crazy as well, because I actually learned about this in school, but that's still how it runs. And that's just another avenue that, like, I think a lot of people are lost in school, because they think, well, I'm not going to do well here. So, and when I want to have fun and mess about, because if you're not going to do well, you are going to just try and have fun. I get punished for that. Forget this, and forget authority, and forget systems that are trying to tell me how I need to behave, because you've not gave me the tools to do it in another way that you see fit. So I don't want to follow your rules. I don't want to conform to what you've got to say. So I don't like how it runs. And that's how a lot of people's mindsets are.
That's so deep. So school kind of potentially knocks it out, and these are some of the areas where people, just an area where some of the stuff gets knocked out. What else would you be? So we were talking about representation. What's the story in Walsall? Like, how well represented do you feel you are? In which areas, or which areas do you think more can be done?
I think when it comes to like the representation of Walsall, like people just don't think it already, you just think, Walsall, you already have that kind of preconception that it's a bad place, it's a shithole, as they say. That's the exact words people use, and like you have that preconception of it, and that kind of like shows in the way some people carry themselves around themselves. Like it's sometimes like people, and this is sometimes, not everyone, but sometimes it is dull, and you hear people complaining about this and that, and I feel like as a whole, like even let's just start with the town, because we could branch off to the other little subsections of Walsall, and in some places it's really bad, but we don't even need to go there. We could go to town alone, and the story tells itself. And what's good and what I do like about Walsall is, in the midst of all that, there are still lively characters that try and make the best with what they've got, and I love that about it. Like even the homeless man, the one, he's singing away in Walsall, like a lot of the time, like, you know what, he's doing what he can, like, and fair enough.
Which part of Walsall would we find him?
In town.
Which part of town?
Like, he's normally in the middle of town. I haven't seen him in a while though.
Are we talking the part where, is it Santander on the
by Sadler, yes, yeah, just by that.
Oh, Sadler Centre.
Yeah.
Okay, calm. All right. And what tunes does he bust up?
He likes the Ed Sheeran. He likes the Ed Sheeran.
Do we know his name? Give him a shout out.
Don't know his name, unfortunately.
All right. Okay. So it's like Walsall's Ed Sheeran. Okay. So yeah, and any other things that you want to kind of get people thinking about? Just take care of your mind, genuinely. That's the only thing I want to say. Like, take care of your mind, because what you contain inside will always be shown on the outwards as well. So if you think about yourself in a positive way and you think about life in a positive way, that will shine on the outwards. But if you consume all the negativity and hold it and keep it, then that's the reality that you will create for yourself. So just take care of your mind, be easy on yourself, show forgiveness in life, show love, show happiness, and just be peaceful, man. And from like what you're saying is powerful. How can organizations take that on board, and how can they take that on board? And because that's intent, how can organizations adopt that kind of intent or have that coursing through them?
Firstly, it's about taking people as they are at the stage they're at now. And how can I take someone at the stage that they're at now and in some way or other just help them along their journey to becoming the best version of themselves? So if they're an artist, what can I do to help them along that journey? If they like to draw, what can I do? If they're a runner, because it's not always about finding a studio for someone. Sometimes it's about who you know. You do track and field, or you fast, acrobatic. There's lessons down here. You're rough, you like to fight. Okay, let's channel it. There's boxing lessons down. But it's just about how can I take someone as they are right now and help them in one way or another just to be a little bit better than they were previously.
So if then someone says, how can I do that when I don't know how to relate to them? What could be some tips or guidance for that situation? So somebody in their head has the intent you have, but they maybe they've even approached someone, and as you probably know, that person's not kicking it with them because they don't look like them, sound like them, they don't know if they're being authentic. So go on.
I'd say, in all honesty, chat to the school kids when they finish school. Like if you used to do interviews, street interviews to get the youth's like ideas, chat to the school kids, because they will tell you exactly how they feel. Like they will. That's one thing about like the youth of today, especially, they have no filter. And if you catch the school kids, they will tell you how they feel. They will.
We definitely know that. And I'm more speaking of, because like I said, I'm in the meetings and I know what they're really saying. So we say everything that you say, and then they're like, yeah, you're innovative, and then you hear a few, but you know, and I think what they're really saying is, I'm scared to get out the office, right? So the question is there an alternative to getting out the office?
You know, because that's where the genuine feeling comes behind it. If you don't even want to come and talk to them, the battle's already half lost.
Okay, so this is me playing devil's advocate, because like I say, okay, so devil's advocate, the things I hear back are, but we've already employed people to do this job. We've already employed. So this is for everyone to, like, probably for you as well. I study this world kind of intensely. So there are certain roles that will have the words including outreach, navigator, liaison. So that's code for the people, or engagement lead. That's code for the people that are meant to kind of meet the people. So some of the bosses will basically say, but we've all got these, like I say, filled in the gap, navigator, liaison, the coordinator. We've already got them. So they should be the ones that go out and then come back and report to me. What's your take about the people at the top of the organization, like me? Like, this is me coming out of the office, as it were. Like, what's your take on if I said, yeah, but I've got staff for that, versus me coming out? What from, community's perspective?
I just think that if there was two businesses where, because I'm not saying that you always have the time and it's always going to be.
Yeah. Don't qualify it. Just tell your truth. Yeah, don't qualify it.
If there's two businesses and the person at the top has the mindset of, I've got someone to do that. But bearing in mind, the thing that we're talking about, the outcome is to help someone at the end of it. That's the outcome we're talking about. So if the outcome is to help, and the person at the top has the mindset of, it's a job that I've got someone else for, that's how it's received at the bottom. Genuinely. However, if there was someone, and if you don't have to come talk to everyone all the time and stuff, but if when the limelight is shone on you and people can see, yeah, okay, behind the scenes, but this is really how we feel about it. We do have maybe you don't have to come out and talk to everyone, but if how you feel and your true intentions isn't translated in a way that is relatable, so let's say you aren't finding a way to communicate with them, and this is the way they're telling you that they like to be communicated in, then your battle's lost.
Cool. Like what you said is deep, and I don't want to close here, but I think we'll close here because there's probably a decent part two. But what you said is worth finishing on, because it's going to make people just reflect. And I just want to close this, that probably around this year. So it's 2023, and it feels, this is based on what I'm hearing and all news reports, it feels like people are saying post-pandemic, some of the knife crime interventions haven't been as effective. And then in some areas, they've talked about other types of, addressing mental health and a range of things. And people are basically saying that some of those things aren't making the difference that people intended them to make. And I actually think some of what you said is in the mix. What I'm hearing is that if we want to build trust, brand matters. Part of the story of the brand is who's running the brand, the intervention, and the organization, how accessible they are, or how well engaged or informed they are on the street level appears to be relevant if we're going to be helping hidden communities. I think there's something to think about in what you're saying, because as you said, if there are two companies and one does better outreach than the other one, or one is just better in tune and listens better, it sounds like you're saying the ones that listen better win. Because some people might say, we hired people for, then why would we need to do that? And then other people might say, but I don't get fired for not coming out. And I think that from there we can reflect, because I think you've definitely said, from a community perspective, this is how we say it and think it and feel it. And if anybody wants to get your vote, anybody wants you to engage, anybody wants to hear from you, hear about you, and do anything with you, those are your terms. And I just think, that's a big thing for us to all think about if we're running organizations, if we're in the business of helping people and engaging people. This has been another pretty deep episode of Leading Communities, and just the streets edition, listening to the people edition. We'll figure out whichever name we give it, but big thanks to you, Varnate, for your time. But yeah, hopefully you will be staying tuned, and see you at the next episode. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to keep up to date with all things Leading Communities. You can follow Aspire for You at A4UCIC. To follow That's All Media, search at That's All Media. You can also join us on Facebook at Leading Communities Podcast.